The Inch Prince. Long ago, in a remote village in China, there lived an old couple named Mr. and Miss Ping. Their home was a tiny house at the foot of a mountain beside a rushing river. The Pings loved it. Every day, Mr. Ping weeded the beans and the rest of the plants in their vegetable plot. Meanwhile, Miss Ping fed the chickens and all the other animals. As dusk fell, the couple watered the sweet-smelling flowers in their beautiful garden. The Pings had everything they could possibly want. Well, almost. "I wish we had some children," sighed Miss Ping sadly one evening. "So do I," said Mr. Ping, "but only a teeny child could fit in our tiny house. We hardly have room for the cat." "Small things can be special too," said his wife. "Maybe," said Mr. Ping, "but they need to be the smallest child in the world to fit in here." "I wouldn't care if they were just 1 inch tall," said Miss Ping. At that moment, a fairy happened to fly past. She overheard what Mr. and Miss Ping were saying. She noticed their healthy, plump vegetables growing away in the sun, not to mention their content animals and their enormous blooming flowers. "These two are obviously very good at looking after everything around them," thought the fairy. "They deserve to be looked after too." With that, she hovered over the Ping's tiny house, waved her wand, and whispered some magic words. "Jumping beans and flying fish, give these folk their dearest wish." Soon afterwards, Mr. and Miss Ping became the proud parents of a tiny weeny boy. In fact, he was so tiny, he was just 1 inch tall. "Well, we wanted a small child. Isn't he sweet?" "Let's name him Isn't Boshi," said Miss Ping. "It means 1 inch boy, and we should call him Izzy for short," said her husband. Very short," he added with a smile. Time passed quickly for the Pings and their new son. Each year, their vegetables grew more plump, their animals grew bigger and fatter, and their flowers grew so tall they almost fell over. But Izzy never grew any higher than 1 inch tall. Izzy height chart. Maybe if I stand on tiptoe. Izzy was so tiny, the Pings had to find new uses for everyday objects. A bottle top from Mr. Ping's homemade rice rind became a bathtub. One of the shoelaces from Miss Ping's pink walking boots was turned into a scarf. A dried pea made a great ball. Goal! Miss Ping's button collection was put to good use as dinner plates, and every night Izzy curled up to sleep in his little matchbox bed. When he was 18 years old, it was time for Izzy to leave home. "I'll get a job in the city," he announced confidently. His parents gave him 3 presents for his journey. He had a rice bowl for a boat, 2 wooden chopsticks, which made a fine pair of oars, and a sword to defend himself. Actually, Miss Pink's sharpest needle. Izzy set off on his long journey down the river, between tall mountains, past sleepy little villagers, around wild woods, and through walled market towns, until he reached the businessing big city. Izzy climbed ashore and scuttled along the crowded streets. "I'll ask the emperor for a job," he thought. "That's if I don't get squashed first." After dodging hundreds of stomping feet, Izzy finally reached the emperor's enormous palace. He strode up to the guards on the gate. Izzy puffed out his chest. "I'd like a job," he declared, politely but firmly. The guards looked down and laughed. "You're teeny," said one a chuckle. What could a pipsqueak like you do?" "I can run past you for a start," said Izzy. "Hey, where did he go?" He jumped over the guard's foot and darted into the palace before anyone could stop him. In the courtyard, a maid was busy washing the royal clothes. "I'd like a job," said Izzy. "Hee, you're weeny," chuckled the maid. "What can you do?" "I can run past you for a start," Izzy replied. "Hey, where did he go?" He jumped over the maid's soap and sprinted into the palace kitchen. A cook was preparing the royal dinner. "I'd like a job," said Izzy. "Ha!" snorted the cook as he streaked a pot of squeaky cabbage. "You're tiny. What can you do?" "I can run past you for a start," answered Izzy with a grin. "Hey, where did he go?" He swerved around the cook's oven and dashed into the next room. Izzy gasped. He'd arrived in the throne room. He bowed respectfully to the emperor and the princess. "I'd like a job, please," said Izzy. "What would you now?" said the emperor. "He's teeny weeny, Daddy," said Princess Chi-Chi. "What can he do?" "Well, I ran past your guard, your maid, and your cook to get here," said Izzy proudly. They couldn't stop me." The emperor thought for a moment. "You can look after Princess Chi-Chi," he said. "She needs a bodyguard." "But Daddy," moaned the princess, "how could he defend me? He's only 1 inch tall." "Small things can be special too," said the emperor wisely. "You're hired." "Thank you, Your Majesty," said Izzy. From then on, Izzy never left the princess' side. He was there in the morning, he was there in the afternoon, he was even there all night. One day the princess left the palace to visit her aunt, far beyond the city, as usual. After many miles, they came to a dark forest. I'm scared, said Princess Chi-Chi. I'll look after you, said Izzy. What could you do? Quivered the princess. Just then, a terrifying roar echoed around the wood. Roar! Help! A giant orgy crashed through the trees. He reached out to grab the princess. Put her down, shouted Izzy with all his might, or I'll... You, grunted the ogre. What could you do? With that, the ogre scooped up Izzy. I love bite-sized snacks, he said, and popped Izzy in his mouth. Izzy thought quickly. He took his needle sword and pricked the orgy's tongue. The orgy let out an ear-splitting howl. Take that! Ow! The ogre spat out Izzy and ran off into the woods. That'll teach him, cried the tiny bodyguard. Thank you, Izzy, said the princess. You saved my life. Hey, look, said Izzy. The ogre left his hammer behind. The legends say that an orgy's hammer is magic, said the princess excitedly. She tried to pick it up, the massive tool, but it was far too heavy. I wish you were bigger, Izzy, she puffed. Then maybe you could lift it. Instantly, a cloud of magical stars shot out of the hammer and swept around Izzy. What's going on? He cried. Izzy felt something strange happening. His arms seemed to be getting longer, and his legs, in fact his whole body, was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Seconds later, he found himself standing shoulder to shoulder with the princess for the very first time. I'm as tall as you, cried Izzy. The hammer must have granted your wish. The princess fell in love with Izzy, but not because he was tall. She loved him because he was brave. It wasn't long before they got married and lived in a house next to the palace. The house was small, but Prince Izzy and Prince Chi-Chi were happy. They both knew that small things can be special too.